Thank you very much for inviting us to present our work. So as Anne said, we will present our results on the performances and the economic evaluation of dual-purpose breeds, which has been tested in the PPILOW project with a lot of different partners. So you can see the logo here. So we have CISAF, we have INRAE, Aarhus University, Thuenen Institute and ITAB, so France, Germany and Denmark who are involved in this project. And I'm going to speak with my dear partner Helen and Petra. So that's for the work package 5 of the PPILOW project, for the one who knows the project. So I already lost that, okay. In Europe, so mainly in France and in Germany, the layer strains are specialized and they have been selected based on egg production and egg quality. And to produce layer strains, we have a need of fertilized eggs, which will lead to chicks. Part of these chicks being female, so it's fine, we have layer ends in the end, but part of these chicks being males, as Sophie just explained. And until 2021, part of this 2021 in Germany and 2022 in France, this one-day-old male chicks were killed. So this is not possible anymore in both countries, and so there are different strategies that Helen will present.
Maybe I want to highlight one thing before, going back. For the German law, it says you're not allowed to kill a chick without reasonable cause, and unprofitability is not a reasonable cause, which means we will have to rear the males in the end, and that's something we still don't know, think about much. And so what are the strategies we have so far on the market? For one, we fatten the males of the layer lines, and because they are selected for egg productions, the fattening performance of the males is rather low, and it's quite difficult to market this meat. A second option is, which Sophie wonderfully explained to us, the in novo sexing techniques, which are being still developed, and because research is being done about the stage at when the chick in development actually feels pain is still not too concise. It's a technique still in development. And a third option is the dual-purpose genotypes, which for the organic sector is definitely one that's highly suitable because it answers or responds to the ethical questioning of chick culling.
So first of all, what is dual-purpose genotypes? So we tried a little draw to help to explain. Dual-purpose, so as I explained, we have like layer strains, which are really specialized, which have a high egg production, but a really low meat production. And in the opposite way, we have the meat strains, which are used, and they have like a really high meat production and a really, really low egg production, or even no egg production. And you have everything which is in the middle. So the dual-purpose strains are like compromises between laying and growth performances. And as you can see, you can have like plenty of types of dual-purpose strains. You can be here and be more like a meat type, or you can be here and be more like a layer type. So here we are going to speak about 3 different ones, but just keep in mind that they can be plenty of other ones. So these are just examples. And the dual-purpose strains, which can be used on the farms, have to be defined according to the objectives of the farmers, because that's the main point. You cannot just speak about dual-purpose strains like generally. There are plenty of different ones.
So here you see a map of all the project partners involved. And maybe I would take the chance now to say hello to everyone here, because I've heard that there's people from Pakistan, Switzerland, France, Italy, Argentina, Brazil, which shows the global movement really about making a change for the livestock we have, which is great, really great. And then we thought maybe we introduce ourselves, like the research places we come from. And here I show you a little video about the Thuenen Institute for Organic Farming. It's in German, but I think the images will show which topics we work on. Yeah, it's silent, so. So we do crop production, and this is our farm. It's 600 years old. So we have cattle, pigs, and chicken. And farmers come to us with questions, and we have money to maybe find solutions for those questions. Yes. And so we keep the calves with the mama cows. That's a big research topic in our farm. And obviously the maize production, which is not so sustainable, with 75 centimeters in between lines. And I will wait for the chicken picture. There we are. We do a lot of research on dual purpose and broiler. This is our mobile chicken houses. These are the Atlantic huts. They're quite well known. Then we focus on plants, protein plants, which are not soy. So there are lots of different other plants we can use as protein source. And obviously machinery and various crops. So I will cut it short now. But I'm working on chicken. And so our research topics are formulation, optimization of organic poultry feed, the predation and free-range system. So what can we do to change that, to reduce the mortality? The rearing condition of chicks, we use dark brooder systems. We focus on welfare, definitely. And look at genotype environment effects, and obviously everything revolving around dual purpose for the organic sector. And this is an advertisement. If you feel like this speaks to you, then speak to me. I'm happy to assist in master thesis, any kind of research work. We have a lot of different topics we can cover. Yeah.
Okay, so I tried to do the same. Oh, there is a problem with the slide. Sorry, I tried to do the same for ITAB, so which is my institute, the French Institute for Organic Production. And I just wanted to say that ITAB is like leading a bigger association, which is named ITAB Lab, and in which we regroup all of these different French associations, which lead approximately like 40 different experimental farms or farmers, partners on where we can do experimentation in plenty of different fields, not only animal production. It can also be about crops, and that's my next slide. So that's a picture of the ITAB team. And the main teams are working on livestock farming, production and transformation and quality of the products, the crops productions, sustainability and system approach, and we have a transversal approach on organic production. And I am Sarah Lombard, and she's Helen. I think Anne said that. And I'm an agronomist working on swine, poultry, and rabbits in organic production in France. And there is all of our contacts in the end of the presentation. So, if we focus, is it me or you? Is it me? If we focus on the main objective of the study, the objective was to compare performance, behavior, and welfare of 3 different dual-purpose genotypes, which were reared in 3 different environments, in 3 different countries, which are Denmark, France, and Germany, under organic conditions. So we have 3 different genotypes and spelling mistakes. The genotype A, which is the dual-purpose crossbred, which was more oriented to the meat production. So if you remember the slide before, that was more on the right. The genotype B, which is a dual-purpose rustic breed, and the genotype C, which is a dual-purpose crossbreed, more oriented to egg production. And you have here the picture of the males and females of the different breeds.
So here you can see some basic data from the on-station trials of the females. So the weight at 18 weeks and the number of eggs at week 62. Red is always genotype B, blue is always genotype B, and green is always genotype C in this presentation. And here you can see the differences in the performance quite well. With A, the meat type, with the lowest laying rate, this negative correlation is, we will never ever be able to work on that. And genotype B, the lowest low selection one, was quite well performing in comparison to genotype C, which was nice to see. There's a study published about the quality of the eggs of these dual-purpose genotypes, which is highly recommendable to read. And here we found that this genotype A, with the lowest egg laying rate, has had quite a good quality, in fact. So maybe quality over quantity. This is a table showing classical performance parameters on the fattening performance of the males. The trials were done in Denmark, Germany, France, and one in springtime and one in the wintertime. And here you can see the different weights at 12 weeks. So we had the goal that each genotype would reach 2.1 kilograms of live weight. And you can see that genotype A did quite well into that direction, but genotype B and C was quite lower than 2.1 target weight. Then you can see the average feed consumption per day, that's fresh matter, and then on the bottom that's the FCR, which is above 3 for all genotypes.
In the PPILOW project, we have what we call NPG, so National Practitioner Group Decisions. So there are a group of stakeholders who are interested in the subject we are working on, poultry or on pigs. So in different countries, we have a group for poultry and a group for pigs. And so in this work, we decided to ask them their point of view on which of the different genotypes had to be tried on farms in the different countries. So we presented them the main results for the genotype A, B, and C. So the genotype A is the one with the higher meat production and has a lower egg production than the genotype C. The genotype B was not that good for egg nor for meat production, and the genotype C had a lower meat production than the genotype A, but a higher egg production. So that's what we presented to the groups in Denmark, in France, and in Germany. And so we had meetings, and they had to decide which ones they wanted to try on farms. And so for France and for Germany, they both decided to try the genotype C genotype for layers, but also for the males. And so that's the different conditions, the different rearing conditions between France and Germany. So we had approximately the same number of birds for genotype C, but a different number of birds for the control. It's important to notice that the control was not the same in France and in Germany. So you have the picture of the French control here and of the German control here. The genotype C birds came from the same batch for both countries, but the diet was different. And the farm were different, of course. I mean, the conditions on the farms were not the same. We both measured the feed consumption and the FCR, but in Germany they also did behavior observation, and they collected welfare indicators, which was not the case in France. We both collected mortality, and the age at slaughter differed. In Germany, genotype C birds were slaughtered at 16 weeks and the control at 13 weeks, whereas for France, sorry, it's stopped to work at some moment. For France, we splitted both groups in two, and half of the birds for genotype C and half of the birds for the control were slaughtered at 13 weeks, and the other part at 15 weeks. And in France, we also looked at valuable cuts, and we collected carcass weight in both countries.
So here you can see the growth curves of the two genotypes in each country on the organic farms, and As expected, the control genotypes, green and pink, or rosé, performed better, had a higher daily weight gain and weight. But genotype C performed quite similar in both countries, which is also a good result. So the environmental effects can we see in here.
It's me? Yeah. So for the mortality, in both countries, we had a higher mortality for genotype C than for the control, but we have a really high mortality in Germany because of fox attacks just before slaughter. But the mortality is quite high in France as well. When they arrive, the chicks for genotype C seems to be more weak than the controlled ones. For the FCR, we have FCR at 3.7 for Germany and France at 13 weeks, whereas it's much lower for the controls. The carcass weights, as we can see, are always bigger for the control than for genotype C, but that was expected. But we have carcass weights around 1.4 kilograms at 13 weeks, 1.7 kilograms at 15 weeks, and it's quite interesting to see that it's quite the same for Germany, which has 1.8 kilograms at 16 weeks. So the data are quite the same in both countries, whereas the rearing conditions were really different. So that's interesting to notice.
So during the fattening period, we did behavior observations inside and outside of the barn of both genotypes, and here are the results. We looked for resting behavior, stretch and flapping, which is a comfort behavior, panting, preening, dust bathing, foraging. We looked for positive interactions between the animals and for aggressive behavior. And first thing you notice, genotype D spent 46% of the time resting, not moving, while genotype C spent 47% of its time moving, foraging, being active. We have to keep that in mind for the rearing conditions, but also for the feeding regime. Another thing we observed is 4% of the time was spent with aggressive behavior. And this can be explained due to the fact that genotype C was kept until 16 weeks of age, which means they reached puberty and sexual maturity, and therefore showed some hierarchical ranking order. Yeah. Next, we also scored the animals. So we took each animal, 200 of them of each genotype, and scored them for welfare indicators. So we looked at, you can see the welfare indicators on the bottom, the beak, the plumage damage, plumage cleanliness, injuries around the head, footbed lesion, hook burns, toe damage, and breast blisters. And scored them from 0, which is perfect, to score 2, which is imperfect, abnormalities. And first good news was that most bars are quite green, which is a positive sign. Most animals were impeccable. But we found that in genotype D, so the control, the heavy broiler type, had more dirty breasts, scored 1 and 2, and while genotype C didn't show any dirty breasts. This is obviously because of the resting behavior we saw in genotype D. Once they lie a lot on their breast, it gets soiled. Another thing we saw is that in genotype D, we found more footpad lesions. This is also associated to high resting behavior, while for genotype C, we didn't notice anything, and they were kept in the same rearing conditions. For genotype C, we saw the 4% of aggressive behavior at the combs. So once they attacked one another, the combs had some little injuries, and this is shown by score 1 and 2 around the comb area.
So I told you that we collected data on the valuable cats, and that's the main data we collected. So what was interesting, so we weighted the legs, the wings, and the breasts of 100 of genotype C chicken and 100 of control chicken at both slaughter dates. What is important to remember is that it's always bigger for the control, but the differences might not be that big depending on the different parts, but we didn't have enough data to have like statistical analysis or whatever, so it was just to give us an idea about that. And we also looked at the carcass conformation score, so we did like a scale, so you can see here, you have the score 0, which are this big one, and you have score 1 and score 2. And so at 13 weeks of age, for the control, they all look like that. And for the genotype C, they look like that. But when they are like well presented, you don't see the difference as much as on that picture. And if you let them 2 more weeks to grow, you will have 40% which will be scored 1 for the genotype C, so which look more like this carcass. So there are big carcass conformations difference between the different strains. So to conclude on the technical part, and then Petra will go on the economical part, genotype C in France and Germany were coming from the same batch and were reared in 2 different conditions and 2 different environments, They were reared up to 15 or 16 weeks of age, and they got similar FCR carcass weight in both countries, very good welfare, and they were really active birds. Around Europe, there are more farmers who are interested to test dual-purpose breed, and some are testing this breed in the PPILOW project. And so that's the farmers from the national practitioner groups. And so the main points to remember is that for genotype C, we need a longer fattening period with a higher FCR in comparison to the control. So there are higher feed costs than for the control males, and that won't change even if we keep them longer. It will still be higher cost anyway. So it might be economically feasible to rear this kind of chicken if the meat is sold at a higher price, or if, in the perspective, the productivity of the female could be considered for a complete economic analysis, and maybe one of the solutions would be to increase slightly the price of the eggs in order to compensate the rearing of the males. And also, what we think with Helen is that male from dual-purpose strains could valorize feed, which would be less rich in protein, and maybe side products of the food industry to decrease the feed costs. So there are a lot of more research to do on that topics to make it maybe economically feasible in the end. So thank you very much for your attention. You have all of our contact here, and we can answer your questions if you have some.
So the discussion is open if you have some questions.
Thanks. My question would be like your definition of dual-purpose breed is what you explained with the graph, but how does it work with like more native species of chickens? Because now I feel like dual-purpose, what they say about them, they fit better in a natural system because they can handle like less protein better, but then they're actually super hybrid because you have like a hybrid laying hen with a hybrid meat, so it feels like it's doubling up. Why did you choose the dual-purpose breeds you're working with, and do you know more natural species?
Thank you. So we choose the strains according to selection companies in France who are working on dual purpose. So the aim was to have one. I start from the beginning. There were no experiments on that subject in France when we started, and so we discussed it with France, Germany, and Denmark. And one of the aim was to have a dual purpose, which was an experimental strain, which was really more layer type, and one which was really more meat type, but also a rustic breed. And so the genotype B was the rustic breed, but it was tested only on experimental farms because it was not selected to be implemented on farms after. because of the results, but also because of the behavior of the animals. I don't know if it answers your questions, but we were not able to test too many of them, and that's the first step. I think that we need much more steps to have much more answer, and you can complete it.
This is maybe a personal opinion, but the availability of dual purpose is just very, very low. And for commercial farms, it would be basically impossible to gather the hatching eggs from different little breeders. And these little breeders are usually hobby breeders, focusing on aesthetics, usually of those native breeds. So that is a problem. But I mean, we are at the start of something. So yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. It's quite interesting. I would like to ask, because you are talking about dual purpose breeds, and as you explained that there are less, it's not commercialized. So what about the feeding? Like, do we have a specific kind of feeds? For example, there are feeds for broilers and layers. So do you think that they have to commercialize such feeds as well? Like, I hope it.
I was speaking to this microphone. So yes, the feed should be different for dual purpose, and this is also a big chance for dual purpose because they are less needy for protein. They are less. They are more robust, I guess, and they forage more. They get their supplements, I would say, from the outdoor range. This is also in the baby footsteps of the research. I know of various papers, articles published on reduced protein and reduced energy for dual purpose. And yes, so this is a big topic to discuss around dual purpose.
Are there other questions or comments? Yes?
I was just wondering if you could say a few more words about the environment that were kept in. You said they were very different between the countries.
Go for it.
So we had some problems in France because we started the trial in the meantime that we got restriction for avian flu. So they stayed inside. They were not even allowed to go like in a restricted outdoor run. It was like impossible to go outside. So that's the first point which differs. But also the size of the groups were not the same because that's right, no? As they were kept all together in France, like the 200 something. Whereas you had, I don't know, I don't remember the numbers of the groups.
The same.
Okay, yeah, but in one batch. Okay. So, but the feed was different as well. What else did we have? Season are not the same. No, season are the same because we received the chicks in the same time. Sorry, we mixed between on farm and on station. So mainly the feed and the access to the outdoor run, and the barn was not the same. How it was organized, the light was not the same. The litter was not the same. So a lot of differences, but that was also the aim of the project, to test in the different environments. So. Okay.
I have a question regarding the carcass damages you were mentioning, and I think I didn't get it fully. So the males had carcass damages. So is this about the keel bone deformations or fractions, or what is it?
It's not damages, it's the conformation of the carcass.
After slaughter?
Yeah, so that's the picture. Like when we slaughter them, that's what the carcass looks like for the control, and at certain weeks, that's what the carcasses looks like for the genotype C. So to sell it to the consumer, they won't have the same, maybe they won't have the same point of view if they see, if they see that one or that one. So that's what we wanted to record. Is it clear?
Yes, I think I just didn't know about that this happens.
That you can have much differences.
know that the carcass changes after death, or I didn't. Sorry, maybe I didn't get it, but this happens. So when you slaughter them, a few days later, it starts.
No, this is right after the cooling down, and it just shows how, because of genetics, the breast meat is differently in its form. Yeah.
Okay. No. This is now that's clear. The information was for me linked to other topics.
Okay.
So now I understand. Sorry.
Sorry, maybe I was not clear in the explanation.
And perhaps most dual-purpose males are sold as full whole carcasses. So the consumer, the first look at it, the expectation is broiler breasts. So it does look different to that. Yeah.
Short presentation.